All right, so I'm going to introduce you real quick. Your name is Mike Turpin. You're a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you're a personal trainer, right?
Yeah, man, you got it.
And then I originally met you in the Baltimore stand-up comedy scene. And
Yeah.
then I don't remember if you came to one of my rap battles or what, but eventually you started getting into the rap battle
Oh,
scene as well. You actually did a battle with an event that I threw, and then you also did a bunch of battles at Face Off out in Baltimore.
yeah. Yeah, no, what happened was, well, do you remember actually the first time you were at a stand-up show that I was at High Tops
Yeah,
years and years ago? That was where we met. And then eventually you started getting into battle rap. I don't know if it was your first ever battle, but you were at, was it City of God was the name of that venue? And it
gods,
was
but
you
yeah,
battled. Yeah, okay. And you battled, oh yeah, the movie City of God, City of Gods. And you battled Codes.
yeah.
Was that your first ever battle rap?
No, well, so that was my like second live battle. I had been like I did like online battles and shit before that. So I'd been, and I like was a rapper. I like made music and shit for a long time. So it's kind of something that like I had been doing for a long time, but I didn't do like live battling. It was I think my second battle.
Gotcha.
Um, so part of like I was really excited to get you on here. Part of this podcast, really like part of the reason why I started doing it was because it's really for me, honestly. And like trying to think of it. I did like write down some ideas that might just help me keep my thoughts like going in the right direction. But I also want to kind of like not look too much at my monitor.
Yeah.
But like I'll just say it like this, right? Like so over the last like year or so, I mean like what actually happened was like I ended up moving to Alabama for a little bit. This is so I left Maryland, and then for about like 5 years, kind of I got away from like the stand up scene, the battle rap scene. Then I kind of came back, and then the whole pandemic happened during that period of time. So then I just became like a little bit more like introverted because I wasn't going outside as much, and then now I'm just kind of like getting back to like trying to find myself. And there was definitely like a period of time where I feel like I kind of regressed kind of socially and just, kind of getting into my head a little bit too much. And I still kind of do that. And
Yeah.
so I always feel like there's like maybe a little bit of part of me that's like, it feels like broken, right? And like, I've been working on that for like, a while now. And like part of me working on that has just been like partly I started going to therapy for the first time, but then I also like I started doing like mushrooms, and there's one particular thing that really stands out to me is I was like doing mushrooms and I was thinking about a battle that I had with Flow Leads, right? And so Flow Leads was this guy, for people that don't know, obviously, he was a battle rapper. He was, kind of in the same league that we used to battle at. You knew him, probably maybe even closer than I did. I'm not sure, but like, he passed away. But like when he and I battled, there was something that he told me where he said, and I remember the line, it was just like, I beat Turpin, and he's basically you with a clean shave and self-esteem, right? And like, I thought about that line a lot. Like, I was on mushrooms too, and I was like, I spent like an hour thinking about it. And that I think was when I like started, like, I listened to that like podcast too, and I was just like, kind of like trying to process some stuff. So my whole thing is I've always like I grew up I went through like a fair amount of trauma as a kid. I mean, like by the time I was 13, I had 30 surgeries. Then I also just had other stuff. Like my mom tried to kill herself when I was like 14. My dad passed away when he was 21. And I got bullied in school. I was always, I'm deaf, as you know, and like I kind of have like I don't know if you ever actually, because I don't know if we ever hung out at a point where I had short hair, because I'd never really like I used to have longer hair, so I kind of like covered up my ears and stuff, and so I was always like very like kind of self conscious about that, and had a speech impediment and all these other things, and so my whole kind of childhood and like life growing up, I just never had very much self esteem. And I always like felt really like, and some of it like can be like perceived as like, me having like my own like victim mentality, and just kind of being self-defeating in a way. But that line like really kind of stood out to me in that moment, because like I look at you and like you're like a guy that like I respect, and I look like a guy that like you know when he says like, and there are some other different there are other similarities just beyond that. It's like obviously we both kind of got into stand up, we both kind of got into rap battling. We're both just kind of eclectic in that way. I know you've done podcasts, I'm now doing podcasts, and we just kind of like get into all these like random like hobbies and stuff, jack of trades type of thing. So there are like some similarities beyond that, but like I never really. And also we're also both bigger guys, right? Like I'm not like in shape. I'm not like you. I can't like deadlift 600 pounds or whatever it is you do. But like but I just don't like. I started thinking about that, and I was just like, the way I kind of evolved eventually to kind of see myself was in such a like a self-deprecating way, kind of like a self-hating way. Like, I can't emphasize to you how much like I on some level I think I have like I had like a have had, whatever you want to say, a body dysmorphia type of thing, where I think like I'm much more like repulsive in my mind than I actually am. And like I just like I don't know. It's just like so like that comparison just like made me think, oh, like that, like we're close enough alike, like, and you might feel completely different, right? But like, but I mean, like, but that thought like is just like like a clean shave and self esteem, like that's two things, right? Like it's just like all you like the only real difference is that mental aspect of it, where you're like where I'm in my own head and not feeling like I can accomplish like certain things, or be like to be I mean, it's not necessarily just physically active, like that's part of it, but like that it's more so the character that you have. And I've done a lot of talking so far because I know your personality, and like I know how like you are a very energetic and charismatic person, and so far I have not let that show yet. But like I just know because I've seen you perform, I've seen you in public, and you're like a type of person that like is not afraid to be yourself. You're the type of person that like I think a lot of people gravitate toward because you're like, you're this big lovable guy kind of, and you just are not afraid to be yourself. You're just kind of like, I like, I don't even know. I can't imagine you like having depression, and maybe you do. So I guess maybe that's one of my questions is like not even just having depression, but like, are there periods of time where you feel like you get down, or you feel like in your own head and self-doubt and those types of things?
Well, so just to directly answer that, like, I mean, yeah, man, at my worst, sometimes I feel like I've been hanging on by a thread, or I let like certain life things go by, and I'm good at procrastinating. And as far as like adulting and things, I put myself in a lot of situations where I wouldn't call it unrealistic, like just random depression. But I've been in a lot of situations where you have a lot of reasons to carry stress. Mm-hmm. And maybe, and as far as depression goes, dude, like I grew up a fat kid. I was 340 pounds before I started losing weight. Like right. my parents went through a divorce. It was rough. I was, push, pulled different directions, harboring a lot of hate, but also had a big heart and was sensitive in my own right. I was never like literally bullied, but like there was always that chip on my shoulder that I think I came out of, that was sort of proving myself to like, I have an older brother, all these things that, yeah, as far as like depression specifically, in some ways I am probably like the opposite of depression, but like I don't have like a smile on my face all the time. And when I'm home like by myself and it's just me, I think that energy is probably a bit more depressive a lot of times than people would probably guess. I'm not always just like in a great mood singing in the shower and beatboxing around and making jokes, like right. I am kind of a more So like my energy is probably opposite, where when I'm out in the real world and I'm engaged with people, I almost always feel occupied, good, fulfilled in some way, complete. But then the part of me that's like away from that definitely kind of at times maybe can wallow in my own pity. But I've also done a lot of work to try to not be that way, and just perspective. Like I see it in others. So like I could see a guy like you, and you know what I could say? Like, okay, it makes sense. Maybe Alan really does want to lose 30, 40 pounds. And if he does lose it, he'd be in a better spot. So maybe it does make sense that he doesn't feel amazing about the way he looks, right? But I also see the people that want to lose the weight, and then when they get there, they're just as depressed, if not more depressed.
Right.
So it all starts now, like finding that positive thing, having some sort of momentum, having something in like the driving seat, something to look forward to, something you're engaged in. So like I think that's why we probably gravitate towards these things, like let me get into the next big thing. And like it gives us something to look forward to. It probably creates a positive outlet in our home space. Like we're working towards this next rap battle, this next MMA fight, this next stand-up comedy set. And then maybe eventually we get a little burnt out, or the relationship with that gets less fulfilling. And then it's either on to the next, or it gets a little flat, time off. And then we kind of go maybe back into our own hole, or you do maybe more than me or whatever. But I can definitely, I can 100% relate to it, and I can see it. As far as like me, I can definitely remember times where like you feel like maybe wrapped up in like codependency, you know, like being a child with like going through a divorce where that was such a pivotal part of my life, where like a handful of years were so stressful as a result of that, where like I can remember like past breakups where it just feels like the end of the world. And like it's pathetic to think about it, but it's true. Like that's what it felt like, and that's what you go through. But it's like over the years, just new perspective. Like you talked about mushrooms, like I've turned to stuff like that before and learned a lot from it. And you know, like one lesson I learned was like, it's not right to give somebody or something that kind of power over you. Like if somebody has the ability to, with whatever they say or do, make me feel like shit, like that's not, why would I give them that sort of power? And why would I give some sort of substance or something else that level of power? It's easier said than done, dude. But I'm just saying, like, I've had these moments and things that I've built on and things I'm proud of, and trying to be an important role in other people's lives. Like you don't have kids, I don't have kids, but like I really take seriously my friends' kids that like think of me as their uncle. Like that kind of stuff like keeps me going. And
Right.
knowing that like I get to play a role in other people's lives and other people depend on me. But like, for instance, in the winter, I work less. I'm out. I also do landscaping now. Since COVID, I've done landscaping, and I'm not no longer a full-time trainer. So I train clients and I do landscaping. But in the winter, I have all this free time and I'm less productive. I get more in those sort of depressive, lazy loops because I'm not so busy. So if I was less busy, if I had less hobbies, if I had less everything, I would probably be more depressed and be able to relate to a lot of that more directly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You mentioned like kids and not having kids, but having people like kids in your life that, you know, maybe look up to you and things like that. Do you think that that's an important part of like what kind of drives you? I mean, I like, there's definitely a part of me that has always like has wanted to, like get involved in mentorship for somebody else. I know at one point in my life, and especially because like I did struggle for a very long time to get, socially acclimated to, you know, what normal people, you know, tend to do socially. I had a older mentor who kind of like, you know, I'm sure he hated like having to help me out, but like I he would just tell me over and over, like, you know, the things I'd have to do. And sometimes I'm sure it was like pulling teeth where it's just like, you know, go do this, go do this, go do this. And I'm not, you know, I'm not getting it done. But, and like one example was like, this is back when, you know, I was still learning to rap, because this is how I met him. He was a rapper and part of, like, apart from helping me with like social things, he also helped me like learn how to be a better rapper. But like part of that was like him trying to help me promote my music. And in order to promote, I'd have to like actually, go up to people and be like, hey, I got this CD. Do you want, buy it or not? I wasn't even trying to sell it. I was trying to give it away because I just wanted people to be able to hear my music, right? I put all this time and effort into like writing and all that. So it, meant something to me to try to be able to get that out there. And so eventually I got to a point where like I started doing it a little bit. I wouldn't say I was like great at it, but like there was definitely a time when like I couldn't even go up to a person that I don't know and be like, hey, I got this CD. Would you like to listen to my music? And I remember like I was like on a, a college campus at one point, and I was just like sitting like on a table, just literally trying to have this mental battle with myself, right? Like just trying to like, all right, go do this. And like me just being like coming up with reasons why I can't and why I shouldn't. And then, eventually I kind of got to a point where I think I said, eventually just did it. And then like it went okay. And then, there were at least a couple, I don't know how many times, but probably like 10 or more times where like I, would just be like rapping for people and stuff that, I didn't know, didn't have any conversation with prior to that. Sometimes, there would be other people that like also might be rappers. And then like, we all just like kind of start ciphering together. And like those were good moments, but they would have never happened if I couldn't get myself out of my head. And so I needed that mentorship, I think, to have somebody, because I didn't have like my father was not very like, present in my life. I didn't have an older brother. I didn't have any brothers. I just, so I didn't really have much of like a male, role model at all. And so that was definitely like a part of something that I felt like was missing in my life. And so I was just like, eventually, I think, I was able to get over that. And that's something that I would like to be able to do for somebody like me who struggled with that type of thing. I'm still like, the thing is I'm still not like the best at it, right? Like I wish I was better. I could give you a real concrete example. I literally just went to a protest yesterday, right? And like, I joined like this Discord, right? And my wife was working. I was off because it was a holiday and like, well, for my work anyway. And so I had already like joined this Discord and I knew that like I was going to be there by myself. And like part of me was like, all right, I don't want to feel like a loser. So I just like, I've been trying to work to be more vulnerable. I've been trying to work to be more honest. And even if that honesty isn't a thing that like, I feel like, it portrays me in the best light. Like I want to just be like, I don't want to have to like put on an image and be something I'm not or somebody I'm not. And so like I basically like messaged and I was like, I said what it was. Like I don't want to be like I don't want to feel like I'm alone and whatever. Is it all right if I hang out with any of y'all? And then there were like several people that were like, yeah, you can like hang out with us or whatever. Just like, and that was fine. But then like I actually get to the protest, right? And there's like all these people there and like I just kind of I stayed to myself, right? Like, because I don't like, number one, I can't really visibly identify who these people are right off the bat. But even like then I could have just like messaged and been like, oh, like, where are these people? But like part of something in me doesn't allow me to do that because I have, I think, a fear of like, rejection or a fear of like, I don't know. It's just something there. That's that part that I feel like is broken in me where I feel like, and I don't really have that hard of a time opening up to people if I get like an invitation. Like I feel like a vampire sometimes, right? Like if you invite me into your house, right, I can be like open, I can be myself, right? But like without that, I just can't make that initial move where it's just like, hey, like, will you accept me as like part of your group as we like, and especially just knowing like part of it is just deafness, right? Like part of it is like me being afraid that like, this is never going to be a problem with you because you're kind of a loud guy, but like a lot of people, some people are just very, very quiet and like, I don't hear them. So that's like, that's the hard thing. I actually, Maestro Metaphorics, right? He another person in the battle rap community. I actually ran into him at a rap battle event I went to like a couple months ago. and he's like this super, like, I saw him, like, I was, and again, this is a rap battle, a rap battle is like kind of the same thing where there's all these different people, and then there are people that I kind of know, like, or maybe I just know, like, from like online or something like that. And, I have a hard time bringing myself to just like go up to somebody and have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not invited into it, right? I don't know. And so like I saw Maestro and I had talked to him in the past before. Weirdly enough, like when I first met him, we kind of like we were kind of like butting heads a little bit just because like I started doing events and I was kind of like encroaching on his territory because he was throwing rap battle events. But eventually, I think we kind of like we worked it out a little bit. He invited me to be on one of his events, and I rapped there, and like we kind of like smoked a blunt together, and everything was good. But I saw him at the event, and we started talking, but like he's just a very quiet dude, and like I tried to talk to him a little bit, but then there's just like there's these lulls because I don't really hear everything. And it's like, if somebody says something, then I got to be like, what? And then like, if they repeat themselves, I can only do it so many times before they're like, all right, what the fuck is this? Right. I don't know. It's just like,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just like, I feel like I went on a whole tangent and now I don't even know where I was going.
No. Well, I got you, dude. Like, you were finished that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Dude, well, first of all, I am that exact type of extrovert. Like, I'm the worst with small talk. I don't strike up conversation with strangers almost ever. Like, there are times when we're at parties or gatherings. Like, this is a good example. The other night I was at a friend's. They had a bunch of people over, and there was two different groups. Like, the husband's friend group was at one table, and then the other friend group was kind of like the wife's friend group was like sort of over in a different area. And like some people would sort of intermingle. And every time it happened, I was so awkward and so uncomfortable and so quiet and not good at just the little icebreakers and that kind of stuff. And I was just, and then all of a sudden we started playing the game Sorry. And then I got brought over into this group, and it was probably like the craziest 0 to 100 they had ever seen, because I went from being this super quiet guy that they're looking at that, this fighter dude, whatever the heck. And then next thing you know, I'm this eccentric, laughing, talking nonstop, having fun in this game. And like, I can relate to that same type of thing. I don't know exactly what it is or what. And I think if you really wanted to make a goal to fix it, it would just be strategical. You would just have to learn a method of like, this is how I small talk, or this is the mode of that. Like, if it was something you really wanted to unpack and work, you would almost have to teach it to yourself, kind of like you would do with like an autistic person, like we're all a little freaking off in some way, especially these outlier people. And it's probably just like, that you're just a little atypical and you're not that normal small talk, like you have your own hyper specific interests. And because of that, the general, like, this is what we all kind of half pay attention to, whether it's the weather or brands of clothing or whatever the heck. Like, it's just not the kind of stuff that makes us tick, or we don't get by on that type of conversation. And I think it's very normal and it's cool and it's unique, but it's more uncomfortable for you than it is for them. And if they wanted to break the ice, or if they wanted to have small talk, or they wanted to bring you in, they could. But at the same time, if it's something you wanted to do, you just strive towards it. And it's like, the first time you talk to a girl is a lot harder than the 20th time.
Right.
And it might be weirder for some people than it is for other people. And like, I'm not good at that kind of stuff. Like you said, I'm not good at making moves. I'm not good at like doing it. It's a lot of pressure. It's like, that's anxious for me, whether it's fear of rejection or what. I don't know what it is, but it's still just that kind of thing does give me anxiety. But it's like, you actually have to be honest. Like, what do I really want to do? Do I want to be having a conversation with Maestro? And if I do, am I going to come at him with enough angles where, and then if it doesn't work, oh, well, at least I tried. Or am I going to go away thinking I should have tried to talk to him more? I should have talked about this. And it's just kind of like being honest, I guess, with what you would like the outcome to be, and then just doing your best to make it happen, and know that clearly he's probably comfortable with it, or more comfortable with it than you would think. he's not as maybe hyper aware. Especially some dudes, dude, like you talk about smoking a blunt. Some dudes smoke a blunt and then their mind is going a million miles a second in every direction, questioning everything, 20 times slower than the speed of time. But to some people, they aren't thinking of a fucking thing. Like some people, they say, don't even have dialogue running in their head. They're not even thinking at all. That just might be one of the chillest, calmest, easiest going dudes who is not even thinking about worrying for a damn thing, especially about whether or not you can hear or what you got going on in your head. He ain't even worried. So, like, I can't relate to that level of chill, even though a lot of people would probably say I am very calm in intense situations or other things. But there's a yin and a yang to it, and there's a balance. But I do want to say this, though. So in the beginning of that, what it led from was talking about, like, not having kids and having people in our lives. I should add this. I will say this for sure, dude, for sure. The lowest points in my life, the number one thing that brings me back are thinking about, like, in my circle, my faux nieces. Like, there are times where, like, I'm really close to this one Ava where I was in the circle since she was born, and now she's in 10th grade and blah, blah, blah. We just have this special bond. And, like, at my lowest times, I think the role I get to be, like, I'm in this girl's mind, I'm one of the coolest people ever. She thinks it's so cool that I'm her uncle / parents' friend / whatever. And that is so fulfilling. And it makes me feel so good about myself and her sisters as well. Like, I'll even make the joke, like, hey, who's got the coolest fucking uncle in the world? Like, don't you forget it, girl. And like that, it means more to me. It almost is to a weird level because they probably don't get it, because it's like, that is that. I don't have the kids. I don't have the this. Like, there's somebody that I started taking to the gym that I met at the local lifting gym, and her and a couple of her friends. But this girl, Lena, up there, she just turned 19, has no real relation, not great relationship with parents, lives with grandparents, yada, yada. Not the point. But the point is, I encouraged her to come do Muay Thai with us and striking. And, like, just knowing that I get to be that pivotal role and, like, introduce her to something new, and then know that I get to be the responsible one of not, like, taking advantage of this situation, not making it weird because she's a girl, not doing anything, but just being somebody that she can wholeheartedly in every way count on, will protect her in these situations because she's coming into a fight gym and she's starting off sparring brand new, and it's like, knowing that that's my role, that those things cross my mind throughout the day, when I'm driving, when I'm going to bed at night, when I'm doing things. Whereas, like, me doing jujitsu is not what's crossing my mind. That's not as fulfilling. But being this role, and like this girl saying, like, I've never had anybody really encourage me to do something I've wanted to do like this, like something like that. Like, that's a line I might hear 10,000 times, dude. Something like that, just that one little second might mean more to me, or might carry me through things that I don't know what I would be. Yeah, of course I'd be fine without that one person, but you take all of those pieces out of the way, and all of those people who, even my friends who I've been able to play a role in their lives, like a life-changing role, and they look at me some way and they've had heart-to-hearts, and, like, knowing that I get to be that role with other people, that is so fulfilling to me. And yeah, I think it's important, dude. I think it's got to be important. You need something like that makes you feel good about yourself, that isn't just you, and it's a genuine thing, and it's a role you play in others' lives. And I think the less of that you have, the easier it is probably to get caught up being depressed, I would think. You know?
Yeah, not only that, but I think, another part of it is, like, so overall, I'm pretty, like, content with my life, right? I like, despite all things, I've somehow managed to, like, be like a moderately successful person. I'm obviously not rich or anything, but, like, I have I went back to school. I got, like, a 4.0 in computer science, which is a STEM degree, which is, more difficult than the average degree. I'm a software engineer. I'm married. Not everybody even does that, like, finds a partner. Or, I play guitar, I rap, I sing, I have done stand-up comedy, I've done 2 albums, I wrote a 300-page book. I could keep going down the list of random, things that all of which are at the end of the day, like I didn't really accomplish a whole lot with, but like in terms of like productivity and things that I create, like I think I'm well above average, right, in terms of those things. And yet, um, I just completely shut out my brain, dude. Like, like
Yeah.
I had a thought and then lost it.
Yeah. Well, what about like the contrast? Like, are you involved in any youth in any way? Like, do you have any
No,
nieces, nephews,
and part of it,
yeah,
is like, I don't. Okay, so this is the thing, like the having a goal, having a purpose, right? I think would ultimately kind of like um keep me like, oh, like, so the only thing that I don't really like in my life is, and that's what I was kind of getting at, was is that I'm addicted to alcohol, right? I've
yeah,
struggled with it for way too long. And I started when I was like 16, but like by the time I was 21, then it got really bad. My dad ended up dying because of liver failure. And alcohol was a large part of that. And so alcohol is the one thing in my life. Every other thing I can live with, I'm happy with, but that's the one thing that like I can't get rid of. And maybe that's the key to it. Like maybe, and I have been thinking about like, oh, okay, maybe I could do like a big brother, big sister type of thing. But yeah, just like I think, getting involved, more with the youth and trying to like, do something that feels like fulfilling in a way that is more than just like creating some shit. But at the same time, I always like, there's a part of me that doesn't feel like I have much to offer, right? Like I feel like one part of it is because I am still like kind of like struggling with alcohol addiction, that like, I might not be the best like role model for somebody. And then the other part of it is just like not feeling like I have accomplished enough. Like I'm not like, super wealthy. And I feel like we live in a society that really expects people to be super wealthy, right? We expect like, because like whenever you say you've done something, if I made this album, like people, what people really care about is, are you famous, right? Are you like, how well, have you done? Are you a millionaire? Are you, have you like reached these benchmarks of like, and a lot of this I think comes down to like social media these days, where like these are the things that people look up to, where you watch like a video of some guy, he has like 8 Lamborghinis and he's got 100 women, and like that's like what you have to be, I think, to be a role model, or at least like sometimes that might be the perspective I get. And I don't feel like I have that, right? I don't feel like I don't feel like I have anything impressive to offer, right, as a role model, and so that sometimes like kind of prevents me from like think like it hinders me from thinking I'm worthy of that, I guess.
yeah. No, man, I get it. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not wealthy, but I think to be a role model, the first thing is just having a heart and and caring and listening and being cool. You have a sense of humor. You're interesting. You're a unique person. Like those sorts of things, I think transcend, especially in what other people think of you. Dude, a lot of people wouldn't like you if you had Lamborghinis and that's all you had. A lot
Mhm.
of people, that would be a reason for them to hate you.
Yeah, I
That
never thought
you
about
have
it that
this
way.
status. Yeah. Not people don't like people just because they're wealthy. I mean, some people might. I don't think it's a reason to think any way specifically. I mean, it might be impressive if it means they're self-made or they've worked a lot or whatever it is. It's cool. I don't look down upon it. Obviously, it'd be awesome. But at the same time, a lot of people do. A lot of people have a chip on their shoulder, I guess, if they really care about that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know. I always value just personality and character and the energy in the room and like kind of like a vibration, so to speak. And I think that goes a long way in how you can affect others. Like but I get it, man. And like as far as like the alcoholism, all that, it's tough, but it's just at least and you can be honest with what is your biggest problem, and you
Right.
can't lose sight of that. You
Yeah.
have to be honest, like what the number one. It's like you can't come at it through a different door. You can't find the route to the other side of alcoholism through the gym, through being a mentor, if it's not without along with it going through the door of removing the alcoholism, or not alcoholism, but without the means of that, if that's the biggest issue. But I mean, I'm not here to coach you through that, dude. I've had my own shit and whatnot, and I just know it all too well,
Right.
you know. But yeah, it's tricky stuff, dude. And then it's like, if it's not that, it might become something else. And the next thing you know, you got some other freaking addiction, dude. You hear about these dudes that just stay locked in their room jerking off all fucking day. There's all kinds of stuff out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some of them are rich. You hear that? I listen to like rich people podcasts, famous people talking about it.
Right.
And they're talking about being so depressed and so what. That's what it is. It's like, we think like this. The reason I don't feel great is because I live in a society where we're expected to have money. Well, then why aren't you going to feel great when you have the money? Because you're not going to feel great when you have the money either. Mm-hmm. And eventually it just comes down to like, I mean, hopefully it's like, I'm going to feel great. I'm going to stop not feeling great whenever I just let myself stop not feeling great. Mm-hmm. You know, like that is the mover. The you know, not saying you need to feel great, but the idea of like feeling bad, removing that at the front end of making the changes is probably the healthiest way to go about it. Like, I've been a trainer my whole life. Like I said, I could show you pictures of women that you would think are like so gorgeous and so everything. They hate their bodies, a lot of them, worse than the women I train that you would think look more average, or they have a lot of room to grow, or whatever. You know, it's like you don't obtain the self-worth and all that when you get there. And you can see that in these things like comedy. When you hear these people, they reach the fame and then they feel even worse. And we can sit here and say, that wouldn't be us. That wouldn't be me. I would appreciate it. That wouldn't be me. Bullshit. Why wouldn't it be? We don't know because we're not them. But you hear it all the time. You hear it in like the guys like the Theo Vons, that motherfuckers interviewing the most famous people in the world, dude. Everybody loves him, and he still hates himself. You know?
Yeah. No, you were. I mean, I think people like that, and even the people that you were saying, like they have like incredible bodies, but they have this really like negative self-image. I think it's just because they're able to take like negative fuel and put that, you know, into doing something productive. And to some degree, I feel like, you know, I do that in terms of like all these like hobbies and crap that I have, where I'm just like I like. And especially like rap battling is like the one that I focus on like the most out of all of them, I guess, where I just like, I put so much effort into it to try to be good. And I think, you know, most people would say that, you know, in the battle rap community would say that I am good. I've had people that are literally like, you know, I don't know if you know, like New Jersey Turpin and plenty of other people who are, you know, well known in the battle rap community as some of the best battlers that have complimented me on stuff that I've done. And yet, I don't feel very fulfilled because I don't have that same level of fame that they do or whatever. But I definitely like, the reason I get good at it is because I use my negative emotions, I guess, or negative like thoughts in order to drive me towards like being good. Part of like when I go into a battle, I'm always like thinking like, okay, what is the worst thing somebody's going to say to me? How are they going to humiliate me? You know, if I go in there and I don't do well, if I choke, everybody's going to make fun of me. And, you know, I've had, you know, like I've been online and stuff and had people like make fun of me and stuff like that. So like, I always use that as my fuel. I'm thinking about those moments and thinking like, you know, all right, I'm going to be as good as I can to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I feel like people do that, you know, just like, there are probably people that do that in the gym, right? Where they're like, you know, right. I'm going to, you know, show people that like I'm not like this, you know, out of shape person, and I'm gonna like take all these like negative, you know, feelings and experiences I have and like put them into, you know, being the best person that I can be. I mean, do you feel like do you motivate yourself with negativity like that ever, or do you just, are you more positive motivated?
I try my best not to be so outcome driven. I just try to like, dude, every day I'm on the fucking mats, I'm having a good time. I'm having a party. When I go out and compete, I try to have a good time. I try to make it fun. But at the same time, man, it's like, for instance, it's like you say, oh man, that's so cool. Mike got into rap battle. But like at the same time, I'm like, bro, I had a fucking terrible time 80% of the time rap battle, and I forgot my freaking lines. It's some of the most shameful stuff ever. Like if you were just to Google it and you find the wrong one, it's gonna be like, oh, dude, like you're gonna cringe for me. And same thing, it's like I know that I'm a tough dude. I know that I go into the average gym, and a lot of times I'm a top dog. But at the same time, I lost my MMA fights, you know. I've had a great success in jiu-jitsu. I've had great success sparring in the gyms, doing stuff like that. But 3 fights in when I stepped into the cage to fight, you know, I got finished in the second round. After starting off in a way, every single guy, it's like you rock them, you could have finished them. And it's just like, so like there's so much, I don't know if shame is the right word or potential shame, where eventually I think I put myself through so much shame. Like you talk about guitar. Well, I taught myself how to play guitar, and within a few months, I'm saying it's a goal to be at an open mic. Well, I'm not a natural fucking singer. I'm none of this stuff, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I think my willingness to do things in the infantile stages and put it out there for the world to see, a lot of my friends and a lot of people probably find admirable and endearing and willing to be myself. But that doesn't mean I still know, like, damn, dude, like this sucks. Like, you know, like I see both sides to it and I feel it. So like, but in the long run, when you also see things through, like you say now, black belt in jiu-jitsu, I'm at a point in my career, it would be really hard to embarrass me in a jiu-jitsu match, win or lose, because I've been through hundreds of fucking matches. I've had some of the highest highs, some of the coolest moments, like a highlight reel that most people could never have that kind of footage, and I get to have it for the rest of my life. But at the same time, it's like, if I let that get too big, then I'm going to feel the moments where next thing you know, there's some high school wrestler blue belt that fucking dominates you at the tournament. And, you know, here you are. Everyone's like, well, Mike's a black belt. Why didn't he beat that guy? You know, and it gets deep. But at the end of the day, how many people even know that? How many people even pay attention to it? How many of my people who know my name, know my MMA fights, know the rap battles? That's all in my own head, dude. It is what I make of it. I'm happy to have lived through it. I'm happy to experience it. I wish I could have been, because I know my potential. Like, you know me well enough to know where if you knew gun to head, I had to do the best freaking rap battle I could do, I'd probably pull off something that's at least pretty damn good in ways, even if it's kind of cringy in ways. You know what I mean? So like, you've seen it, but because I didn't do that or I couldn't do that, right? It's like for the rest of my life, I also have to then live with that. Mm-hmm. So it's a double-edged sword, man. I try not to let either side of it pierce too deeply, if that makes sense.
Right. So when you go into like a jiu-jitsu match, do you go into it like thinking, do you just like not have expectations? You're like, I don't know if I'm going to win. I don't know if I'm going to lose. I'm just going to go do this and try my best, and whatever happens, happens? Or
I like to be that way, but inevitably, if you know who you're going to go against, maybe there's like somebody where you're like, it feels like it's going to be kind of a gimme. So maybe you approach it a certain way. Maybe there's somebody where you feel like you're supposed to lose, so you approach it a certain way and you tell yourself things. But like, I'm not a set in stone, hardwired one way, dude. Sometimes it might be about just going out there and like, I don't want to get out of breath. I don't want to get so wore out that like I feel miserable out there. Like, just have fun, keep my breath, do what I can do, and look for an opportunity. Whereas some days it might be, hey, man, go out there and be the alpha. Go out there and be aggressive. Like, be first, act first, be strong. Like, you're a strong person. Like, so it's in the bigger picture in a couple years' times. And when you've had hundreds of matches, you inevitably can approach them differently and go and learn, you know, different ways, if that makes sense. So, but that's the type of person I am. I am that sort of jack of all trades, sort of pliable, experimental, less systematic in that way. So you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes I go out there and my intention is to be as weird and soft and almost like Wing Chun, like weird hand fighting and like a softness that doesn't look like wrestling. But then sometimes I'm gonna go out there and you say, damn, dude, that guy's just a bull. So you just don't know. And I don't know. And I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
But yeah, it used to be more about winning. It used to be more about that. Like, and don't get me wrong, dude, like I want to win. Like when I'm going and if I have teammates competing or something, or there are different reasons that you want to do it. But like, No, in the long run, ultimately, probably compared to the average person, it's more just about like um, maybe keeping my composure, maybe trying what I can, and then knowing if there's a minute left, you're willing to go for broke instead of just like seeing a decision loss come your way. So there's like little things, and then you learn from it, and you then the next time you game plan because there was that time in the last minute you didn't go for broke and you lost the 10-2 decision when there was no reason you should have let it go to the bell just laying on your back. That last minute you should have gone for broke because that's your only chance of winning. Like then the next time you say, okay, I'm not going to do that again. So
Right.
it's little pieces at a time. You can't fix it all at once.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Do you ever like stop to think about the fact that like so if you have like a bell curve of people in general, just like and like I don't know, men are men, so like they like to fight, right? So every like part of being a masculine man's and at least like that's how I grew up, and I know kind of like you're kind of you consider yourself like a man's man type of person, so like fighting is like part of being manly, right? Like to an extent, right? But like do you ever stop to think about the fact that like on the spectrum of all people who fight, right? And that like ranges from people who never fought and people who fight all the time. And I'm just talking about competitive matches. I'm not talking about like just like fighting for no
Right,
reason.
right.
But like the
Okay.
ability to fight, but do you ever stop to think about the fact that like you are currently like you're in a position where you're fighting the best people who know how to fight, right? And
Right.
that puts you so far away and removed from the average. If you look at like the spectrum of like the average person, like you would probably beat the shit out of them, right? Like if you had to
Yeah, I
get
would hope so, dude. Yeah.
but like, do
I
you
would hope.
do you stop to appreciate that, or are you just like so
Ah,
focused on like the group of people that you're with because those are
yeah.
your peers and those are the people that you're really like you're looking at the average of those people, right? Not the average of
Yeah.
like humans. So do you appreciate
I
that?
see both sides of it. I see both sides of it. It takes certain times, like when I'm only at the gym and I'm only in those circles, I forget. And then when we go out and I'm in other circles
Right.
for other reasons, or we're out at like just some sort of general population place at a bar, or you're at like a gathering, a party, maybe you start to realize that and have that perspective and you can appreciate it. And I mean, I do appreciate it. And fortunately, now I've gotten into a place where I'm also typically secure and feel good about my dynamic with my peers, even that are in that little bubble, that 1% already of people that
Right.
I don't have to like think about the bigger picture and appreciate it. But ultimately, like, it's a nonstop moving thing. Like there's no end game. There's never like once I get this level like good at fighting, then I'll be happy with it. So if I could just see it in this way and realize I'm better than 99% of people or 95% or 99.5%, there shouldn't be really a tick into like now I'm satisfied, now I'm done. I'm happy just staying focused on getting better. It's nice to have the feedback of the people that are better than you. But like, yeah, you're right. Like there are times where, dude, you're getting your ass. I told somebody one day, it's like, bro, like they talked about MMA, and I'm like, dude, I love fighting. I just don't know if I really like fighting dudes that know how to fight. Like, like, because actually someone recently even told me like, yeah, but that's a sport. Like I know like real fighting. It's like, don't get me wrong, dude. Shit can happen in the streets that you were unprepared of, or bad things can happen. Not even like full blown weapons, just like anything can happen in a real fight, and people don't have your interest, and there are no referees. And I mean, I'm not acting like I'm some badass like that, but at the same time, 9 out of 10 times, if I get into a fight out at some fucking random place, it's gonna be way more fun than me stepping into a cage to fight a fucking MMA fighter, dude.
Right.
Like, duh.
Yeah.
That's going to be way less fun having to fight an actual fighter. Of all the people you have to fight, you pick the freaking one guy that knows how to fight in the
Right.
entire, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so like, yeah, I get it, but I try not to let, like, we goes back, I try not to let those things affect me emotionally, but I am realistic, and it is easy for me to like see both sides of it and stuff, dude. It's weird when you're only living in that world, though. You're right. You do lose sight of like taking it. But then what good does that do me? What's it matter if I walk into a room and puff my chest and think, damn, man, I could kick everybody's ass here. That's so awesome. Like, I don't give a shit. And even then, like the manly thing, bro, I'm like a fucking woman. Like I gossip. I watch fucking reality TV sometimes with girls. I love girls. I can be one of the girls. I don't see myself as this overly masculine man. I just do a lot of things, and I'm a big, strong dude, and I have a deep voice, and I'm an alpha. But like, I'm just as much of a woman as I am a fucking man in a lot of ways, dude. Trust me.
Right.
So I don't know.
Do you ever like feel like, is there, I mean, at this point you're probably like immune to it, but like I guess maybe more when you first started getting into fighting and stuff. Was there like any level of fear of like, okay, like, I mean, I can get injured, I can get choked out, not choked out and like embarrassed, but I mean like literally like, like that I considered at one point like doing some I don't know if it was, I think it was like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but like, I watched a video on it and then immediately like it's just like, okay, well, we're gonna choke you out. And like immediately I'm like, I don't really want somebody choking me out. Like, and I know like it's literally part of the practice, right? Isn't it? Like to some degree, where
Yeah.
obviously you're not trying to hurt the person if you're like sparring and like training and things like that. But like, how do you get over like I don't? It's not even fear. Sometimes it's just like I don't want to like I don't want to break my arm or hurt dislocate like a shoulder or
Yeah.
something like while doing something. But how do you motivate yourself like beyond that like that whatever it is. I guess fear. We'll go with that.
All right, dude. So like it's this simple. Like initially I got into fighting. I like the idea of punching dudes in the face and fighting like that. Like that was my idea of fighting. I did jujitsu. It was at an MMA gym. Jiu-jitsu is easier to kind of get into. It made kind of sense. I had been the biggest MMA fan in the world. And like jiu-jitsu was never scary or intimidating to me, but I didn't love it, dude. I loved the idea of hitting people, but I didn't like getting fucking hit. So like you say, you don't want to get choked. Like I didn't realize just how much I don't like getting cracked in the freaking face, or even worse, just like leg kicked or kicked to the body, or just knees and elbows, and day in and day out, and having to do that at a chill. Like we're just doing this to get better. Like hard sparring has never really been my thing. And I've gotten much better since getting my black belt. I started striking again with the goal to fight again, a few times maybe before I'm 40. So long story short with it, with jujitsu, it's like, well, you can always tap. I think the worst thing in jujitsu, once you get over like the physicality of it, like being that intimate, because it's so freaking intimate, dude. It's psychologically and physically, it's the most intimate thing to be that in each other's space. And it can be as psychologically deep inside of somebody as you could imagine, especially if you're willing to take it there. Like it's a very intimate experience. So if you can get comfortable with that, the only other thing that really sucks is getting tired. So like if you can just control your breath, you tap before your arm breaks. So don't have an ego. If you think something's weird, just tap. Most of the guys at the gym, they're not there to be a UFC fighter. They're not even there to compete. They're just regular dudes. So it doesn't need to be about like defending your arm at all costs. Once your arm gets pretty at risk, just tap out and the shit's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, on to the next. But I will say it's taken a lot of rewiring with the striking, with like, because when I fight MMA, I want to hit people. I do jujitsu all the time. I want to punch people. I want to actually like what my mind like a fight is. I don't want to go out there and just choke somebody and use my jujitsu. I'd like to strike, and I like the idea of there, if I need to or it goes there, I could use my jujitsu, unlike like a kickboxing match. So like I like the idea of that if it needs to go there, I could use it. But I've just had to tell myself like, don't let a strike be anything more than it is. And then like also I've had to like go back and say like we're starting at like level 1 of the video game. Like we're tap sparring. Right. We're staying comfortable and we're staying calm and we're having fun. Now we're playing level 2. Now we're playing level 3. Because before it was like guys wanted you to just play level 20 or level 30 right off the bat and try to get comfortable with that. And I could never do it when it wasn't a real fight. So the only times I was actually comfortable fighting, my whole MMA, like the 3 fights I had, was in the cage fighting because then it was time to fight. And then I actually was able to bring it and go at people and hit people hard. But sparring at the gym, it is fucking scary. I don't know how these other dudes do it. Some guys just, I don't know if they grew up with like abusive fathers or they just got a different wiring in the brain. But like, I'm a pussy, dude. Like, I'm scared of the fastball. I had to stop playing baseball at 12 because once I got to 13, I sucked because the ball was it was intimidating. I'm scared of playing paintball. I'm not like that tough guy. Like, I am in ways maybe, and maybe I have like a good grind or like a good work ethic or something, but like I was scared of playing football in school.
Right.
So like I've had to learn the hard way. But why did I learn it? Because I knew what I wanted. I want to be good at this shit. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's parts of it are fun. If we can just get over this other shit, like, so just stay calm, breathe, pretend, it's no big thing. You just got hit. You're fine. Back to the same thing. Don't let it be anything more than it was. And then you have to be willing to say, hey, fuck it. This guy's going hard. Let's go. Don't just be a bitch and turn away and just let him, don't wilt. Just fuck it. What's he going to do? He's going to knock you out. Is he going to knock you out every day at the gym? Like, are people going to be cool with that? You don't even have to train with them anymore. So there's so much shit with it once you get down into it. But I'm a pussy too, dude. Trust me. Just people don't get it. Trust me, dude.
Yes, I mean, like, I remember I was like I joined junior varsity football when I was in my freshman year of high school, and like, and you were saying the thing about like scared to play football, and like I remember specifically like I was on like the football team, and we were out on the field and we were like practicing tackling like for the first day, and it's just like I just didn't have it in me to like really like try to like hit somebody. And you were kind of just saying the same thing, I think, where you were like, the only time where you were really, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but like I think you were saying that the only time that you were really like ready to actually like punch somebody with your full strength and actually try was when okay, we're in the sanctioned cage match, this person's gonna come at me, I'm gonna come at you. But other than that, you kind of hold back a little bit. And I feel like I did that a little bit when I was younger. And for me, I can't speak for you, but I just like, for me, part of that was like just kind of like my mom was kind of abusive. And so I always felt like, and all throughout school, part of the whole thing of being bullied was like, I never felt like I could fight back. Because I always had to worry that, like, even if I got into a fight with somebody and I won the fight, whatever. I mean, I had like a kid punch me like right in the eye, and he was much, smaller than I was. Like, he didn't rock me at all. I just like, ate it and then walked away. And like, but the thing is that, I didn't feel like I had the ability to fight back because like I knew that if I did, then I would go home and then my mom would beat the shit out of me. Because like anytime I got in trouble, then like that was like a fear that I had. So I was more worried about that and more thinking about that than whatever the fuck was going on like on the playground. And so I started watching like a podcast, and it was like kind of this revelation that I had a couple days ago where there was a psychiatrist kind of talking about men and like just how men are allowed to express emotion, I think, in terms of like our society. And I don't know if this resonates with you, and I guess that might be the question, is whether or not it does. But like it resonated with me because it was like, I feel like men are not necessarily allowed to have certain emotions, right? Like men aren't necessarily allowed to have fear, right? People will just tell you, man up. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to be afraid of something. You're not allowed to like cry, because people, again, same thing, man up. You like the only emotion that men are really allowed to have is anger, right? And so anytime that like the ability, because that's a protective emotion, right? That and we expect that from masculine men, to be able to protect and to be able to use like anger as a good thing. But there's also the double edge of that sword, which is that anger from men is also simultaneously looked down upon in society, right? For example, it's like one very common example, and this was the one that the psychiatrist was talking about, was that if I get into an argument with my wife, right? I have never ever put my hands on a woman, nor would I ever. But I yell, right? If I get really angry, I yell. That's just like and anger is a normal emotion for humans to have. And then likewise, my wife will yell. And the thing is, I mean, I just naturally have a very loud voice. I can yell very loudly. And so that also may be perceived as threatening. But there is, the double standard of, if a man is yelling, then that is something that is potentially like, fearful. There was in the same interview, they were like pointing out that like, when somebody Googled, my wife is yelling at me, and then when somebody else Googled, my husband is yelling at me. When you Google my husband is yelling at me, then the first thing that pops up is like a domestic abuse like hotline, right? But these are the same things, but there are two different interpretations of what that emotion is, what that, the expression of that emotion is, the yelling. And so there's this double standard of like men sometimes not being allowed to express the only emotion that they are kind of allowed to express, right? They're not allowed to express sadness or shame or guilt or, I mean, like, but they're able to express anger, and then they get criticized sometimes for using that. So, I mean, I guess, does that resonate with you at all, or does it just sound?
Yeah. No, dude, I get it. I think when you said earlier, like, I'm somebody that doesn't mind being myself, I see what you're saying, and I see what the expectation is of this is what a man does, this is what a woman does, or whatever. But I also grew up in my own sort of path with unique guidance from having open-minded parents and ways, being alternative, being in different circles. Where like for me, it's more about like whatever it is, just own it. Like if if I cry, I'm not ashamed.
Mhm.
If any, it doesn't make a difference to me whether or not I cry, or if you were telling me the same story you told me 45 minutes ago, and for whatever reason you broke down in tears. I'm not like judging you as a man and like, wow, what a weak man for crying. It just is what it is. And whatever emotion you're feeling, if you get a little angry or you get a little this, I think owning it and accepting it and not trying to fight it or not trying to be ashamed of it, for me, unless it has something like for me, like who's the victim with crying? I mean, anger is probably one where maybe I would have to keep it more in check. And it's ironic. I would probably be more ashamed of my anger getting out of hand, because if there is a victim or somebody that didn't deserve what I said to them or did to them, then that would be a problem. But I don't really like emotions in general, happy, sad, whatever, anxious. There's not really any shame in that. Like you'd rather not be anxious. I guess you would rather not be sad. But what's the real victim? So
Well,
I don't think
of,
it's that big.
Well, I think of like, and again, this probably just comes back to me being a kid, right? And being bullied and stuff. So it's like, if I just know, like when I was a kid, if I were to cry around any of those other kids, that would just make me more of a target, right? That would be a second thing that people bully me for. And then that just becomes, so that to me always said, okay, I'm not allowed to do this. And I always feel like, I don't know, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never really worked through all of that shit. And that's part of what I'm doing now.
I guess that's it. I guess trust me, 10-year-old Mike Turpin is not going to be very happy about crying because he got hit in the face with a baseball as a kid. You know what I mean? But
Right.
like as an adult, it wouldn't really bother. Well, I don't know, but crying from pain probably wouldn't be my most favorite way to cry. But the point is, as a kid, it's different. But like I can't hold on to that. And this is the thing: we've all realized that it's unrealistic. So at what point am I going to accept the fact that it's unrealistic? And at what point am I going to accept the facts of what I think and what my views are, regardless of what the world expects or what the world thinks? Like, when am I going to accept, like, if I can see it from this somewhat enlightened or different or unusual perspective, when am I going to accept the way that I see it, or let that be the way that I'm proud,
Mm-hmm.
or hold my torch to that in those sorts of things. Like I said, with whether or not you're emotional, whether or not you're this, whether or not you deal with sadness, whether or not you get depression. It's like, I think that if you know that it's normal and you know that or that it's you, that you shouldn't be overly ashamed by it, especially like it all comes down. I would feel shame when there are victims. I think
Yeah.
that would be the number one thing,
Yeah. I think that makes
when you're
sense.
hurting somebody.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, no, I think it does. I think a lot of it really just comes down to me like being insecure with my emotions and like, feeling like I don't know. I just felt like, and again, a lot of it comes down to, and it's not just like I just didn't have a lot of social interactions really, and like so I didn't really learn much outside of like a lot of like my framework came from like TV and things like that. Um, but I didn't really have like I never even a conversation like this. I like I'm 35 years old and I've never had a conversation really like this to a degree. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just like I never felt able to and so it's I don't know. I mean, I know you're talking earlier about like, we were talking about like how people react differently, like when smoking weed. Have you actually smoked weed before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So I mean,
are you more of
go
a
ahead.
like, are you gonna like, are you a person that like kind of like closes up or are you a person that opens up? You know what I mean?
Now I'm a person that typically closes up, but for the stretch initially, maybe it made me more social, but it also made me a little more anxious and everything just became kind of an experience. And I had a stretch where I did it a lot and I probably ran it into the ground. And yeah, and I can turn to it every now and then. And it typically on the situation, maybe how much I ingest, what type it is. Maybe it'll ride and I'll vibe different ways, but there's definitely a chance I'll turn nonverbal.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance I'm not going to be able to listen to a word you're saying and reply to it, or even be able to hear what I'm saying as I'm saying it and be able to follow a fucking thing, dude. Like
Yeah.
it just makes me have no short term memory, and then my sense of time just gets way off,
Yeah.
especially as somebody that doesn't have a tolerance now. It just gets real. There's a fine line between like, and I mean, it makes you feel like it's like essentially like tripping balls without the trip, just totally disoriented and confused without anything to really hold on to or pay attention to.
Right. And I
So,
feel like I'm the same way. Like I know I remember one time in particular, like I was hanging out with my wife and one of my wife's friends, and like I like I don't know, I don't remember if it was edibles or whatever. It doesn't matter. But like yeah, I just didn't say anything like the entire night, and we're just like hanging out. We were like watching like some cartoons or some shit. But I know like her friend was there, just like really quiet. He's not saying anything, and it's just like very weird. Like I don't know. It's just like and a lot of it is like I'm in my head. Like that's what it is. Like the whole time. I just like I'm inside here and not out there, and then that's where everybody else is. And so I have a hard time like getting in and out. And like part of me does wonder like this is kind of like what I had brought up with you before was like the whole ADHD thing. Like so part of me wonders if I could be like ADHD. I'm trying to like get formally tested, but like I've talked to my therapist who like suspects I might, but like at the same time I don't know for certain. And I feel like it's something that everybody says they have, so I already feel like a little skeptical about it because I don't want to be like one of a million people that are like, oh, I got this and that, and like it's just like, but at the same time it's just like I notice sometimes that like I struggle with and weed definitely makes it so much worse. Where I struggle with trying to pay attention to shit. Lately it's gotten, and when I say lately, I mean like the past like several years. Like it gets so bad, depending on the TV show, like I'll be watching like a TV show with my wife and I don't know what the fuck is going on, right? Like and sometimes I might just get distracted, pull out my phone and just focus on that instead. But even if I'm not doing that, like, I'll be watching, a show and then like start thinking about rap battle bars or something. I just always end up going back into my head or just start thinking about something. And then as soon as I start thinking about something, then I go into that, that rabbit hole of
yeah.
what that thought is. And then like by the time I'm out of it, like the whole show is over, and I didn't see a thing that went on. So I feel like that to me feels like it could be ADHD or something like that. Because there are also times where like I have no problem focusing if I care about something. That's really the key, though. If I actually like want to do something, I have something inside of me that feels like I'm motivated to do this, and I feel like there's a purpose to it. Then I can actually do something productive. Like, and even like programming. Like I'm that's my job, but like I'm if I'm working on something by myself and like I'm putting together something that I want to put together, I can sit there for literally hours and hours and not think about one other thing in the world other than the fucking monitor in front of my face and just like, typing all this code up. But if I don't have like the desire to care, which I can't really force myself to have that desire, then like I struggle to do that. Do you feel like that or?
Yeah. Oh, dude, totally. But like at the same time, it's what good would it do me for somebody to say that I have ADHD? Like, do I want to take medication? Do I want to like have different strategies? What is it? And then it's like, if I know that I have these weird abilities to focus on certain things better than the average person, or when I do retain certain information, I do it at a level that the average person doesn't. What does it really matter what we call it? Like, I'm sure someone would say it's a little bit of spectrumy. It's a little bit neurodivergent, which I guess ADHD falls under that category. But at the end of the day, it's like, what does searching for that diagnosis really mean? And it's all kind of a gray area. I think that's the other thing. The way to look at it, something like ADD, ADHD, whatever, is it's inevitably a gray area, and every case is unique, and everybody has some sort of way that their attention is different than somebody else's in a way that's going to have strengths and weaknesses. So you might have extreme strengths and extreme weaknesses, and because of that, you feel like you have a bigger problem, but you also have a bigger strength on your hands too. So it's like, I'm not really sure how to look at it, but I think if you strip away all of these abnormalities, you have the most normal person, bland, basic person ever that we've never really met. Like the ways that you are a bit OCD, or the ways that you almost have less inhibitions, kind of like the opposites, like those are the things that probably make you individual. The ways that make you, that the ways that you are ADHD, the ways that you are socially awkward versus socially comfortable, like that is the unique thing that is you. And nobody is individually balanced, but we are all balanced by one another. So there's a base median, but we are not the median, and we're not supposed to be. And if you have these things where you are the type of person where you are a 90%, a 95% in one thing, you're going to be that same thing on the opposite end. And I think it's just kind of normal, and you can fight it. And as a person, you can grow and you can change and you can dampen your weaknesses and whatnot. But like, it's just kind of, I think that's the way life works. And you're basing it, you're comparing it to other people. So it's like you're comparing your attention span and reading comprehension or auditory comprehension compared to the baseline, and then saying, I'm worse at this than the average person. And because I'm worse at this, I have some sort of disorder. But what about all the ways that you're better than the average person? Or what about that? So like, I think we're just inevitably super imbalanced as people, and then we can sort of point in the different directions. It's the most easiest to see the ways that it seems like a disability, or it is a hindrance, but like people in modern days with things like autism, people are opening it up more to trying to recognize both sides of it. And then we're kind of coming to the conclusion that, well, when you do it that way, what the fuck, aren't we all a little bit? If not, you're just the most normal, balanced, average person, which there are them too.
Right.
So,
well, what I will say is that, like when you were asking kind of like, what is the benefit of getting that label? I think it's like, and for me, it's like part of it is just like the wanting to rule it out. And because I don't know for certain, like, but also there's a part of me that, it comes down to like there is information about people with ADHD out there. There have been scientific studies, and it's like, for example, there are different ways to practice yoga, if you're ADHD, because like. It's like if you have it, then like you might have a harder time focusing on like, or not focusing on everything. But so it's like if I have it, then that gives me the ability to seek out information on how to to be the best version of myself. It's like saying it's like saying I don't want to know that there's like, I don't know, some weird I'm not a big car guy, otherwise I would come up with a great analogy, but like there's some kind of weird something odd about my car, like it always veers to the left. But like if you know with all cars that they always veer to the left, well, okay, you just veer to the right more, right? So that's kind of like what I was thinking. But also,
Yeah.
what I had kind of asked my therapist kind of the same question about like the getting on like some kind of drugs for ADHD. And she was saying, now I don't know if it's accurate, I'm just going based off of what she told me, that like with most, I think she said everybody, but like with all the people that she has seen that like take a certain medication, they say that it doesn't necessarily hinder them. It doesn't necessarily make them, like a neurotypical person or whatever. It just, makes them a better version of themselves, where they're able to kind of hone the strength and minimize the weakness, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, dude. If you feel like something like being medicated would benefit you, then by all
I don't
means,
know.
then that's a route. Yeah, I don't know either. And also, I guess to my point, obviously there are benefits that come with being able to say, oh, if I have this, I can start looking in this direction, or if I know I have this. But at the end of the day, even if she says you don't have ADHD, you're still somebody that when you're watching shows with your wife, next thing you know, you're going down rabbit holes of thoughts that have nothing to do with the show, and you don't know what the fuck you're watching. So it
Right.
doesn't matter whether or not you have ADHD, you have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever that is.
Yeah, you have that. So it's like we can put it into a category, and we can ask you questions, and we can test you, and there is benefit to that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like just minimalizing or marginalizing that entire field and its purpose, but at the same time, I don't know, for me, I don't know what that would do. But at the same time, it's easy for me to say that because it probably would help me cross a lot of T's and dot a lot of my I's and bring order to my life in ways that it's not. So, as far as like actually focusing more on things like that, like the mental hangups or the potentially mental illness or disorders or whatever that you might have. Yeah, a lot of beauty comes from that. But then again, dude, it's fucking maddening too. The people I've been to like in yoga circles, next thing you know, the instructors are 20 times more screwed up than the people. The therapists are 20 times more screwed up than the people that they're helping. And
Right.
it's like the people that are constantly sharing these mantras of, oh, I've been through this and depression, but now it's a light of positivity. They seem like they always are acting like they're just now getting out of the depths that they were in that time. And now they're in this great, I've never felt better, but it's that cycle of they still feel like they're stuck and getting out of it. And like in the yoga circles, for instance. So I don't know, dude. I don't know how you like actually emerge from what you are into something else. And if knowing that you're depressive, if knowing that you're, ADHD, if you're autistic, a personality, I don't know I don't know how to change it other than just like at the very least utilize your strengths and like try to engage in the world and fill your time, like fill your schedule with shit that feels cool, I guess
Right.
is the best thing I could think of. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the way to go, honestly. I guess one other question I wanted to ask you, just because like I've we haven't like hung out. There was like one time we hung out. We were like making a song or whatever. But like we have like we've been in the same place multiple times, right? And in a lot of different environments. Sometimes stand up comedy, sometimes the rap battling community, and so I kind of wanted to get your personal opinion, and you can say whatever you want to, and I'm not going to be offended or anything like that. But I was kind of like hoping to get like your perspective of like how do you view me? Like I mean like or does it seem like I'm off, different, weird? I mean like or just like socially inept, like those things. I mean I don't know. It's just like or how others might view me. I mean. Because you probably
Yeah.
like have talked to people who also know me. Like I know you've done collaborations with like Cranium and other people who like kind of know me in some degree.
Yeah. Well, if I had to define you, I would think that you're clearly an impressive person. Like you're slick, you're smart, you are clever, you can outthink most people, you can probably outcompete most people when you put your mind to it. But I think because you can't always do it, or sometimes it falls up short, or sometimes it doesn't go quite as planned, and you see those little things where maybe 80% of the people in the room think Alan is smart, and they only think 40% think Mark is smart. But for whatever reason, Alan has a bigger chip on the shoulder that only 80% of people think he's smart, or 90% think he's funny, and the 10% that don't. And I think you can get in your own head about the ways that you could be even better, and you get more defensive, and maybe like that's where like the insecurities or the whatever can come out. It's like, here you are, you're this impressive guy, you're better than most people at what you do, and a lot of people who aren't even like you, it's like similar to you, admire you and see the positives. But at the same time, you always know that there's going to be somebody out there, or there's somebody's out there who's thinking that Alan sucks, that Alan's not good. And it's hard for you probably not to like hyper focus on that one thing, or try to like beat that, or like solve that problem. But you put yourself out there, like you put yourself out there in somewhere like in something like rap battle, where even people that are far greater than you, like a day, like a whoever, they're still getting hate, and they're getting more hate than even you are getting. And because they're even more out there. So when you put yourself out there like you do, you're inevitably going to be more polarizing, and you already have a style and a gravitation towards things that are a bit polarizing. But it's hard for you maybe to own that and feel like comfortable with both sides of it, and maybe not let it eat at you. But then again, it motivates you. Like I think you're motivated by the side of like people that maybe doubt you or see you at your worst and think that's you, and that makes you come back a bigger, better version. So it's not like necessarily wrong. But as far as like the side of you that I think that like you struggle with, or like self-image or whatever, it's probably focusing on the people that don't think so highly, and don't realize probably how many people respect you or think highly of you, or yeah, I mean, or they're just honest with the situation. Like, well, clearly he's a smart fucking guy. Clearly he's really funny. That wasn't his best performance. He fucked up his lines. He got a little out of thing. Like but they're not thinking about it all night long. They're not going home and thinking, damn, dude, remember when Purely Deaf fucked up that bar? Remember when he like got all worked up in the middle of that? Like, I think because it's in your own head, like I think you're very aware and feel what people might think, and you might extrapolate one little thought or one little comment and like fester on it. But I can relate to that, and maybe I'm kind of speaking for myself too, because I can relate to that thing. But I think that's what I would see as far as talking down like the things we've talked about: self-worth, proving yourself, insecurity, that side of things. But I think the average person who knows you in a social circle realizes you've done a lot of interesting stuff. You're very capable, jack of all trades. Clearly, you got this job you're doing well with. You have a fucking 4.0. You're good with computers. You can write. You can play music. You're funny. Like, I think they probably think you're a cool fucking dude. And as long as you're not being overly combative or like too like caught up in it, and you're being like kind of easygoing and like harmonious, people probably love being around you, and probably think it's amazing. Nobody's judging you like, dude, you know that? Hey, look at his fucking ears. He can't fucking hear. Nobody's thinking that shit, dude. Like, no, we could have a friend that has one of them little balled up hands with like a weird little fucking circle finger at the end that still has like a bizarre little nail. And it's like, even if you thought to yourself, man, shouldn't he just get that fucking little finger cut off? Like, even if you have that thought, what does it matter? You're not actually judging him as a whole. You still love that fucking guy. But people are going to judge little tiny things and be a certain way. And I think you're just hyper aware and hypersensitive in general, probably. That's probably my take.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that does like feel like accurate. Yeah, it's definitely like something I want to like take time and really digest and like kind of think about. Um, I was thinking this is like a story that I wanted to get into like at the beginning of it, and like I just didn't even know like how to say it. Like it was just like when I first started out doing like stand up and stuff. The very first performance I ever did. Well, actually, before I even get into that, can I ask you like, was there any like, are there any like moments or anything like anything in particular like I think you, yeah. Go, I mean, like anything in particular that like stands out, like that, that made you like think like, oh, he's like really in his head, or he's like, or he's hyper fixated on the negative thoughts too much.
Maybe just I've seen the way that you feel about like criticism, or you've had confident talks to me about like I can tell you're not as sure of your stand up back then, and like I always thought you were hilarious. Like you're my kind of funny. Like
Mhm.
we get along in that regard. But like I thought you were easily one of the. I mean, I've always been outspoken with telling you, dude, I think you're one of the funniest fucking guys in the scene at the time, Like I always got along great with you, enjoyed your sense of humor, enjoyed your style, enjoyed that sort of just like wide open, anything could happen, but it's just punchline after punchline and like quirky, almost like neurotic thoughts. Like I like that kind of stuff a lot. And it's not the run of the mill. It's not fucking boring. It's not corny. It's not a projection. It's like interesting. Like I gravitate towards it. So like I see that side of it, but then I also see the side of you that struggles with the confidence in it. And maybe it's warranted because part of you knows you could be better. And there's a part of you that like can be critical of yourself because you are funnier than the stand up you're putting out at the moment too. Like as somebody that's so capable, you can almost be a step ahead of yourself and then critiquing it in reflection, like that's part of the growth. So
Right.
like I might just be more like in your own head because you are a more advanced person than some of what you are doing sometimes. And as a result, you're not going to feel as amazing about it. So it
Mhm.
might have less to do with other people and more to do with being just that your mind has a good litmus test of what you're capable of. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think there were some times where like when people would be critical and like rap battle or something, and I could just tell like you have a chip on your shoulder. You're a fighter, like a fighter in your own right in that regard. Like you're quick to be like you're not. I wouldn't call you non-confrontational
Right.
in that regard.
Well, see, that's the weird thing, right? Like, so it's so weird because, like, I am in so many regards, and then there are just like these moments in my life where I feel like if I feel like somebody disrespects me, and then like something will happen in a moment, and then I just flip into a whole different mode, and it's like I don't have like I don't. I've never like done anything that I actually regret. Like, I've never been, in my life, I've never punched anybody. I've like, I like when I was in like high school, there were like some people I like love tapped. I mean, like, and I bet like, not even like, but like, but there are these moments where like, somebody does something that like I interpret as disrespectful or something, and then like I just like flip into this mode of like I don't think about anything else. I don't think about like, oh, how are other people perceiving me? How am I like it's literally just like I don't know. It's just like if it's fight or flight, that's the only time I ever get into these fight modes. And then like immediately
Yeah,
afterwards, I like then it's like once I get out of that, then I'm like, oh, like what just happened? And then I
yeah.
don't I never feel proud of those things. And I can definitely think of like many examples. But yeah, I don't see that's another part of it though, where it's just like I'm trying to figure out like why I do that, and I don't know, and like how to fix it. And I think maybe some of that, like I mean, like this conversation, I think has already helped, and I think hopefully, like again, it's something I really want to digest and think about, because there, and that's part of like me like doing this whole soul searching like thing that I've been doing over like the last like half year or so, and like trying to figure out like why it is like I think that way, or like why I get to these like sometimes I just like kind of suppress things, and then I get to a point where it's just like everything just comes out at once or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to expound on that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I get it completely, and I understand what you mean as far as the things. I think what I've seen too is like, yeah, I mean, like you said, you've struggled with certain things, or maybe it's had times where you've had the substance stuff comes on stronger, and you sort of like run from things, kind of lock off, like kind of like that mode of like, I'm done with this for now. I'm retiring from that. I'm not doing this anymore. And maybe you kind of go in your hole and you have those depressive moments.
Right.
And maybe that has something to do with it, whether or not substances are always linked to that. But like at the end of the day, no one, like, I have to search my brain and scrap my brain and like having this conversation to even think of that shit. And I pay attention to this stuff more than the average person. Like, I'm always aware of the way other motherfuckers are. Nobody is judging you or thinking about you like on that shit and all that. Anything that's happened in the past, you can just let it go. No one's going to be like, oh, remember that time Alan like said he was going to quit stand up or something? Bro, they don't even fucking have a clue. They couldn't care less. They're caught up on themselves, you know? Right. I have a weird memory for that kind of thing. And I even have to rack my brain to think about it, dude. Right. So, like, the best thing I think is just not making it matter so much. What matters is doing it. What matters is being in the thick of it. Right. It's not about anything else other than that, because that isn't even in a matter of time. Like, the fact that it was amazing or it was brilliant or it was that, like, just being you and being happy, grinding the way you are and putting out the art and the work and doing things you're happy about and proud of, and not even worrying about if other people get it, or knowing, dude, not everybody likes everybody and not everybody likes the same shit. The music you fucking love, most people don't even like. So how do you expect everybody to like you? Mm-hmm. You know? And you love the music you love, dude. You love the shit you love. And there's some stuff you love, you'd be hard pressed in a room full of 100 people to find anybody else even remotely interested in it. Neutral at best. So how would you expect them to feel some way about you, you know? Yeah.
That always kind of makes me sad too, though, because like sometimes they're like, I agree with you 100%. There are definitely like some songs where I'm just like, oh man, this song, it like speaks to me so much, and like I can listen to it like 1,000 times and like I feel a certain way about it, and then I try to like show it to other people, and they're like, oh, what is this shit? And I'm like, how do you not appreciate how fucking incredible this is? But it's subjective. I get it.
Yeah.
And it's like, in terms of like,
you're a complicated person, dude. You're complex. You're complicated. You're going to like things that are complicated or complex in ways other people fucking aren't. And you're going to be that way, you know? It's difficult being so complex, I think. So.
I mean, I don't know. It's like, because like but like in stand up, I mean, like, I don't know. Let me ask you this then. Like when you used to do stand up comedy, right? Did you did you actually like go into things with like a script, or did you like just like wing it? I remember, and I'm sure it like depends on like, you know, the actual performance and stuff. But I remember, so when I first started doing stand up, like the very first time I ever did stand up was at High Tops. I actually did really well. And like it was one of like the you know, I've done stand up like 100, I don't know, plus times, but like out of all of those performances, my very first time was like one of my best ever. And like, I did incredibly well, but then like I like you said, like sometimes I'm like always thinking, okay, like that was fine, but like, how do I get better? What do I do better? And so I remember I actually saw you do stand up at one point. I think I saw you live before I ever like looked up your stuff on YouTube, but like, I saw you do stand up. I really like the stuff that you do. And I saw like a video that you had on YouTube. You still have it up. I actually watched it today because I was thinking, like, we were like planning to do this and I was thinking about it. And like it was like the Mike Turpin gets like buck wild at High Tops or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And like you go out there and like you're like this big like this is like the energy that you have that I love and that like I gravitate towards so much, because like I remember when I saw it, I just felt like that, like something, like, you know, what I was just saying, like about these like songs that I hear, like, you know, I can listen to thousands of times, like that stand up. I watched it and like like some things in the world, I don't know why, just resonate with me. And I think like, there's something special, powerful about this that like, and so there's always a part of me that like wants to like, how do I replicate this, or how can I like bring that into what I do or whatever. but yeah, so like you come out and you're just like clapping your hands, and then you just start walking around like throughout the crowd and shit. And then like at some point, like I think you like eat a French fry off somebody's plate. You bring up like a comedy member, or like you bring up like one of the people in the crowd, have them like telling your jokes and shit, and like everything. Like I used to watch a lot of stand up like before I ever did it. Like that's part of why I did it, because I used to like every single night before I would go to bed, I would listen to some stand-up special. And to be fair, like it was always like overproduced. It was always like, you know the difference between like an open mic versus like a Netflix special, right? Like you can't always
Right.
do the same things. Like that stuff might not work as well in a Netflix special, but I never saw like, the open mic environment as much. And like I saw that and I was like, I was really like, I gravitated towards it because, and also just you and your personality, because you have so much energy. I feel like you have so much, charisma and confidence. And so I wanted to replicate that. And so the second time I ever did stand up was probably like the worst, like maybe I think it was the worst performance I've ever done. And it was me kind of like trying to be like you. I was like, I want to be more like Mike. And like, so this was the one where I went, I did stand up comedy at a like open mic that Dave Schofer put on. And so it was at like Red House Tavern or whatever. And so like I had jokes, right? I like wrote them out and shit. But like, I also wanted to like just kind of like, in addition to telling some jokes, I'm just gonna like wing it, right? I was just gonna like come up with some stuff off the top of my head. I don't know what I'm gonna do. All I know is I'm just gonna go fucking like, freestyle it. So I went out there, I saw like, over by the bar, there was a empty, stool. So I just like went over, like, instead of like being up on stage, right? I like, go and, sit next to this guy. And I start talking to him and like, we're just like, again, trying to freestyle everything. And then, then I guess at some point, like I was sitting in his girlfriend's seat, so she like came back from the bathroom or something like that. So I like got up and then I like sat in his lap and I stepped and I kept trying to go like and occasionally like, tell a joke or something. So then I went and I got up, walked around a little bit more. Then I sat down in the lap of this blonde girl, right? So that blonde girl was Kat Timp. And I like, for the record, like right now, like I'm fat. I get it. But like back then I was like 90 pounds lighter, right? I was not overweight, but at the same time, like I'm like 6 feet plus tall and like I'm probably like 6 or 6'1", but like, and she is 5'3", very slender. And she freaked out. Like she was just like, I think, and I regretted it, immediately. But like I apologized and everything. But like she freaked out because like, like I guess I was still very heavy, right? I was like probably like 170 or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's a very small, she's a small. And so I didn't like have that like, that mental awareness, I guess, of just like what was going on. And so that was like when Dave Schofer basically. He like sent out like a mass message to people. He's just like, don't book Alan Paisnak. Don't like, he's like, I don't know, like whatever he said. And I only found out about it from like T-Brad or whatever. Cause he told me, he was like, yeah, I booked him like the first event and he killed it. Like, and then, but yeah,
Yeah.
but like, so when you did that, did you like, I don't know, like how, like, did you ever like have these moments where you regret something you did, or did you like go
Yes.
with a plan, or do you just like just kind of go everything off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, I think if you were to watch a set, you would probably be able to tell like which sets are more planned out or which jokes are more pre-written and which things are more spontaneous and in the moment. I will tell you this, my best sets ever, and unfortunately aren't on film, but it's when we're not telling my jokes and I'm being me and I'm bringing the room into this experience and this thing that sort of grows. And it's almost this magical thing where I'll be like headlining, and usually when somebody headlines, it starts getting tiring. Like after 30 minutes, they're starting to, oh man, the crowd's getting wore out. They're just starting this thing. I build and things grow, where maybe an hour in, we're just getting freaking started and things have just started getting really fucking amazing. And we're riding this thing that we created together. And that is the most crowning achievement. But at the same time, I can think of times, yeah, there were a few times I did sets where I didn't have too strong of a plan, or I planned to do something and it didn't go well. One time, actually, at a Dave Schofer room myself, this is probably the worst. For whatever reason, dude, we were at a show and it was the worst fucking show and nobody was there. And I at it, I'm like, it's just me and the comic. You could say whatever you freaking want up here. There's nobody that's going to get offended. And I just started saying the word faggot. Now, dude, you know what I mean? Like, I don't ever say that. I haven't said that since I was like a kid, seriously. Like, yeah, somebody says a joke and they use the word whatever, but I'm not even like what do you call it? Like an edgelord, where I just want to say these edgy words. Like, I don't like saying that word, but I got on this thing. And in that moment, and people were reacting. Some people thought it was funny. Some people thought it was ridiculous. I must have said that word like 40 times just to say it in that set. Yeah. And I don't know why. And it's probably the most shameful set I have ever done. I mean, I didn't mean anything by it, but like, especially by today's standards, it's even worse. Not that times have changed that much in 10 years, 11 years, whenever it was. But like, it was just something that came over me. And when you're shooting from the hip, you're going to have a moment where you sit in this fucking tiny woman's lap and things go south and you're going to be taken the wrong way. But it's that risk and willingness to try that has the payoff. And then as you get a better judgment, or as you kind of in the moment can think a little bit better, it's a skill and you have to sharpen it itself. But yeah, if you rely on that kind of stuff, man, you're rolling the dice. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I can think of another time I did like the same thing. And honestly, I was like, I kind of stole it from Wendy. And like, she had like, I don't know, at some point, like, there was like a stool and she like knocked it on the ground. So I kind of did the same thing in one of my sets. Right. And like, I was like, the crowd was not reacting. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do something crazy. So I like, kick over the stool and then like hits one of the audience members. And I'm like, fuck. And I had to like, I had to like break character. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, so sorry this happened. And it's just like, it's not me. I guess I should not be doing that shit. Like, I just don't have I don't know. I don't know how people can do it and like not fuck it up.
I think the good thing for me is like I tell that story, but like you said in the beginning, like I am pretty freaking lovable on stage. I'm not a mean person. I'm not like I'm playful and I'm fun, but I'm very, very positive. So like I'm just going to be that way. I'm going to be lovable and positive and playful, even when I'm unfunny. And I'm not going to be angry or malicious or these other things, or have a temper tantrum or get upset, because I as a root core, I am fairly lovable in that sort of spot or whatever. Even I'm lovable even when nobody's laughing and it's a terrible set. I still maintain this sort of lovable thing. So like, not to everybody, of course, some people think you're a dick or you're offensive or whatever. But either way, I think that like that being charismatic and like to sum up the comedy thing, like you talk about, I wanted to try to be like Mike in this set, like Wendy in this set. It's like, I'm a mixture of my biggest influences. And like, obviously my biggest influence would be like that Andy Kaufman of like, everything can be different. You never know what you're going to get. It was more about being entertaining and being like enigmatic, or like keeping them captivated or surprising them or tricking them or whatever. Like, the you never know what's going to happen allure of it. And even within a set, so many different things can happen and shift. And it was always exciting. I loved that. But then I also loved the really fast-paced wit and humor of the one-linery people, the Stephen Wrights, the Mitch Hedbergs, the this. And then I also liked a good long-form joke. So I saw myself as this person that sort of, I might kick back and tell a story, and then I might get a little goofy and crazy, and I might be like, it might be this weird schizophrenic sort of mishmash, but I was like, that's something nobody else really does. But I don't just want to be a one-liner comic. I don't just want to do like anti-comedy or character comedy. I don't just want to do any long form, but I want to do all of it because I love all of it.
Right.
So, that made me, I think. And if I was to go back, I might be a little less crazy, but I think I could refine something like that in a way not many people have done, for better or for worse.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely see that. Like, I've definitely seen you perform, and you have these like, you have moments like sometimes you'll be doing one-liners, or sometimes you'll be doing like, this crazy stuff, like where you're running around through the crowd or pulling out props and stuff, like all the t-shirts you used to pull out, the V-necks. But yeah, and I feel like I'm also kind of that way because like I don't know, like sometimes I just want to be like, one-liners. I also love Mitch Hedberg. I love, Stephen Wright, all those people. And then I also like really like, long form stuff and being able to tell a story. And I always like found a hard time trying to like figure out like, because there aren't a lot of comics that like combine them, and some maybe with good reason, because I don't know if they're always like coherent together. But
People
yeah,
care too much about segues, dude.
yeah,
Everyone thinks everything needs to tie together and be smooth. I love just choppy, sharp, erratic. Once it's done being funny, you're on to the next. You don't need to fucking tie it together like you're fucking Dave Chappelle or Bill Cosby or something. Like, for me, for my style of humor, I think it was not worrying about tying it together, just putting it in some sort of order. And even if it was as simple as like, all right, now I'm going to tell you some one-liners, or, like, it doesn't even, what does it even matter? If it's funny, it's funny. And if
yeah,
it's not, it's not. What does it matter if you say, I'm going to do this now? Kind of like, and that was Dimitri Martin, was somebody I watched do that. He would have his segments where he had the sketches. He had
yeah.
the segments where he was on his piano. He would talk. He made, and the other person that did, Zach Galifianakis. So
Mhm.
those are people I watch do that, and I'm like, they don't give a shit about segues. They don't
Right.
care about that. They can just literally tell you, this is what I'm going to do next. People are cool with it. They like you. What
Right.
the fuck? Why do you need to like tie it into like the fucking whatever? And I mean, it is cool to have callbacks, and it is cool. It's smooth to have segues. I'm not downplaying it, but like for me in that style, I think you just had to not. People who worry about segues are the opposite of what the fuck I'm trying to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Not
no,
that you
I get
couldn't
that.
do it. Yeah, not that you couldn't, but it's not about that. It's not even about that continuity. It's the opposite of that,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah, so we've been running for a minute now, but I
yeah.
want to say thank you so much for this conversation. There's definitely like things I really want to like stop and process and really think about. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a great conversation. I wanted to thank you, for taking time out. I know you're like a really busy person and everything, so and I thought it was a great conversation. But yeah, I appreciate all of that.
Hey, man, dude, I loved it. I love talking to you. It's good to catch up. It's good to like have moments like this. And like, at the end of the day, guys like me and you, the reason people compare us, we speak the same language in one way or another and can relate in a lot of different ways and see the world similarly in some ways at the very least. So like, I like kind of breaking down the psychology side of things and the character side of things. And it's fun. And, hope you keep this podcast going. You just let me know, dude, and I'll have another fucking conversation with you. It's awesome catching up.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get you on again. But yeah, all right, see you, bro. Good
Hey,
night.
bro. See ya. Thank you. Good night.